Jungkook, won't you ask if that favored guy of yours is still alive or not? She couldn't control Jungkook's stinging question. Hiding her face in both hands, she sobbed, Jungkook, these tears of yours cannot save you. Tell me how long you knew him. What was your relationship with him? How far have you been helping him in his crimes? No, I had nothing to do with him. Believe me, I don't even know his name. I didn't know who he is. I didn't help him, she said while crying. Jungkook, to put dust in my eyes by telling lies, don't try. YN's breath stopped at Jungkook's high-pitched voice and bored expression. Jungkook, did I not see how he and you have been exchanging smiles? Do you think that everyone eats grass except one of you? YN, my only fault is that he's seeing his appearance. I sympathized with him. I just wanted to give him a nice warm coat to avoid the cold. YN, he made me want to treat him well, to make her believe that being broke is not a sin. She was trembling between the flowing tears. Jungkook, if that poor man had succeeded in his intentions today because of your kindness, I don't need to tell you where you would have been today. Jungkook stared at her. Jungkook, only out of compassion did you trust a man to get off the train with him in a place where you could easily have been a victim, and even so, I didn't just doubt it. There was a reason I was chasing this villain day and night. I was stopping you from getting off the train because I didn't want you to get involved in all this and suffer any harm, but you probably swore from our first meeting that you want to see me with hatred. And your favored one, who was with you, did not show or explain anything to you. And I had no doubt about your stupidity. I had to follow you due to the fact that you were the center of attention. I was not sitting in this coffee shop for hours falling in love with you. I didn't have choice, or I would have handed you over to the police. You have been punished for trusting any stranger. Jungkook, if 2 or 4 days were spent in lockup, the fever of sympathy would have subsided. Seeing her face wet with tears, he stood up from the chair, turning towards the lady police officer who was coming there. Lady police officer, we have to leave now, but I must leave her to her house first. The lady officer's gesture was towards YN, who immediately stood up after wiping her tears. YN, I will go myself. My home, it is close from here. Jungkook, has anyone asked you something? His face was contorted at the rough tone. Jungkook, bring her along. You and I will drop her to her house. Speaking to the lady officer, he went ahead. It took 2 days for her to recover. Today was the second day, but even today she preferred to take a break and rest. On the first night, she could not sleep well at all. Sometimes she saw a shining dagger in her dream, sometimes the murderer. Ginny was left holding her head, knowing the whole situation. She was deeply saddened by the situation. She deeply regretted how one of her vacations had endangered YN's life. But she was also angry at YN's stupidity. She was both surprised and happy to know Jungkook's truth. The evening had fallen and she was sitting on the windowsill of her room, looking through the closed glass of the window at the flowers in the beds at the back of the house, lost somewhere else. Since yesterday, she was constantly thinking about Jungkook for some reason. From the first bump on the platform to the last time at the cafe table, the way Jungkook spoke to her in the cafe was making her feel humiliated that she might never see him again. She never dared to meet his eyes again. This illusion of hers that she knows how to read faces was gone. A lie that leaves no one to trust again can be a serious place. Beyond a lie, 2 days ago she was in the same place, and she was the one to blame for getting there. She suspected that Ginny had come by hearing noises from outside. Her suspicion turned into belief when Ginny came into the room with a smiling face. She was sure that Ginny came to meet her after getting off from the train. She was grateful to her for this concern. She sat on the bed with Ginny. YN, you must be tired and should have went straight home. We were going to meet in the morning. I am fine now. I will go to work tomorrow. Work is also important. Ginny Kim, no worries. I came to explain to you that if you had not made that mistake, the murderer would not have been caught. And I told this to Jungkook. He also had to accept it. YN, where did you find him? YN was shocked. Ginny Kim, to tell you this, instead of going home, I came to you. Jungkook came to meet me at the restaurant this evening. Now this question is meaningless. How did he know where I work? Ginny stopped for a moment and looked at her, who was waiting for her to continue with bated breath. Ginny Kim, he came to find out about your well-being. He wanted to know how you are. She could not say anything at Ginny's statement. Ginny Kim, surely he must have gone to check whether you came to work or not. He came to me after that. I saw concern for you in his eyes. Now tell me what's going on. YN couldn't stay silent on Ginny's meaningful tone. YN, I don't know anything. I want to stay away from everything now. Ginny Kim, it's amazing that someone is wandering around the city worried about you. And you're saying you don't know anything? Do you think I'm a fool? Jinny narrowed her eyes and stared at her. YN. Jinny, Jungkook isn't worried about me. He's still chasing me. He is looking for any pretext on which he can lock me up. YN. If nothing is found, he can hand me over to the police in the name of investigating the crimes of this murderer. Even Jinny, who was talking worriedly, was stunned. Jinny Kim, somehow, because of you, that killer has fallen into the hands of the law. YN. I don't understand why Jungkook would involve you unfairly in this matter. How can you say all this with such confidence? YN. You have not seen anything, Jinny. I have suffered everything. He fell on me brutally and with hatred, wanting to impose a crime on me which I didn't do. He said himself that he wanted to hand me over to the police along with the murderer. I was unknowingly sympathetic. I was trapped in the situation of this murderer, giving him a coat, smiling at him, paying attention to him has cost me dearly. Jungkook is an eyewitness of all this, and he is also pursuing me based on these things. YN emphasized her words and spoke with such conviction that even a bridge was thought of. Jinny Kim, I think you are thinking too much negatively. From what I've talked to Jungkook, I don't get the impression that he would cause any trouble because of this killer. Rather, I am starting to believe that he is interested in you and that he cares about you. YN. Why would he be interested in me? I have always spoken to him with distaste and, even though he told me this, he said that I hate him. YN. Jinny. He will follow me now, in a rage of vengeance for my hatred and ill-treatment. Jinny Kim. YN. Then why did I feel like that? Jinny was a bridgehead, speaking in a confused manner. Jinny Kim. Jungkook really didn't want you to get off the train with that killer that night. Or trust him. Didn't you feel at one point that night that, Jinny, didn't you feel at one point that night Jungkook care about you, or does he have feelings for you? At Jinny's shrill tone, YN immediately felt a burning touch on her neck and earlobe. When she remembered, she once again passed through those strange moments with breathless Jinny. She kept looking at her, seeing her so lost. Jinny patted her hand. Jinny, don't worry, I won't talk to Jungkook about you now, and you won't agree to meet or talk to him if he doesn't give up. But this is my advice, maybe we should explain it to him calmly first. I am sure he will understand my point. To Jinny's consolation, she could only nod her head. On the third day, she was back at work. At the flower shop, she had been dealing with the customers who came to the shop as well as making the orders. It wasn't that she was surrounded from all sides. Every moment she was feeling that, at any moment, Jungkook would appear in front of her. All the while she was looking around, but luckily, what she was afraid of did not happen until evening. She breathed a sigh of relief when she got an early leave order from the mistress when it started raining. Because of the rain, she was going to have some trouble in reaching the platform. She also had to wait on the platform because Jinny was on her own. Even though it arrived on time, the day passed smoothly. The sight of light rain on the platform was very pleasing to the eyes, and the fact that she was shivering in the freezing air with an umbrella on her head. She was sitting on the bench watching the people coming and going, and suddenly her color faded away. When the familiar person she saw coming was Jungkook, YN quickly turned her face to the other side and quickly slung the bag over her shoulder and got up, without making the mistake of looking back, almost running towards the exit from the other side of the platform. But he came. Without a cry, she began to look for a place where she could hide until the train arrived. The sight of Jungkook filled her with terror and fear. She was a simple girl. She was trying to make her life easier by working. YN. Be it a police case or any other cycles of investigation, I'm not gonna get stuck and wasting my life. As she walked, she saw a narrow street between two buildings. Closing the umbrella, she hastily entered the street. On the road, the bright street lamp had dimmed the darkness of the narrow and long street far ahead, but there was darkness ahead. As soon as she realized that she had turned around and taken a few steps forward, the person who appeared at the end of the street had pinned her feet to the ground. A light rain shower iced his existence. As the person came close to Y, and she wanted the ground to swallow, the person was just few steps away from YN. She picked up her umbrella and hit Jungkook on his head. Jungkook wasn't ready for this sudden attack. YN screams. He grabbed her neck in his hands and pinned her to the wall with one blow. Jungkook, stop screaming. All of YN's teeth were swallowed in her throat, due to the agony of the iron grit sinking into his arms and neck. The boiling hot liquid from her eyes started to mix with the rainwater. Jungkook, how dare you hurt me? You know what you will have to suffer, stupid girl. Is your intellect a street grazing grass? You have considered me as a street thug. He roared in a fiery tone. His soul was suffocating. YN stared at his forehead with misty terror, the blood from the wound streaming down his haggard face in the rain. Jungkook, you have given the wound Now you are the one who will heal it, he said in a broken, fiery tone, and then bending over YN's face, he placed his forehead, which was bursting with pain, on YN's burning lips. No sound was reaching the ears except for the faint sound of the rain. From the forehead to the soft burning smell, the touch from the heart to the soul was doing magic. A strange feeling of burning sensation in his veins calmed him down. On the other hand, even though the iron grip on his neck was softened, it was impossible for YN to breathe. She was trying unsuccessfully to stop her sobs. After a few moments, they moved forward without a sound. The rain was starting to slow down. YN was sure she was going to die in the next few moments when Jungkook slowly removed his forehead from her lips. Looking at YN's closed eyes, he slowly cupped her face in his hands. She was shivering on hot breath. She did not feel any harshness and irritation in the touch of the hands around her face. With ragged breaths, she opened her eyes slightly. Jungkook's face bent over hers and seemed so close that in the distant yellow streetlight, YN could not see any anger on his face. She could only see soft feelings emerging in the deep hazel brown eyes. Jungkook, how can you even think that I want to take any revenge from you? I have traveled with you for so many days. I did you no harm. Jungkook, even my excuses after the first collision could not reduce your disgust towards me. Maybe I was lacking on my part, but it couldn't happen. Even though I wanted to, I couldn't take my attention away from you. Nor did I get a chance to improve my image in front of you. I started traveling by train to see you. But then I realized that you can also become the target of this killer. As soon as this idea came, I strengthened my heart and focused on my goal. But it is true, Jungkook, you are unknowingly kind to the person who was disturbing my sleep the way you presented him with a gift. I was back on the coals, despite vowing to stay away from him. It was starting to be out of my tolerance to look at you with a smile on your face. The beautiful emotions that I wanted to be the rightful ones of yours, you were giving them to someone else in front of my eyes. I was forced to bear everything because at that time, my job was my most important duty. Speaking in a deep, serious tone, he was looking into her eyes, who was looking at him for a moment, just watching and listening to him. Jungkook, I did not want you to get off the train that night with a person whose guilt I have found, but when you scolded me and got off the train with him, I was very angry with you. I was crazy about you. That night, I was convinced that I had fallen in love with you to the extreme, and that I had to risk my life to save my love. Jungkook, I got off the train behind you. You were always in my sight. That night I couldn't let you out of my sight at any cost, and I would never be able to breathe. He stopped for a moment while speaking. Jungkook, the question you couldn't answer, Jinny. I want to ask you the same question. YN, don't you remember any moment that night when you felt that I care about you? I want you in my heart. There was something in the dark tone that made YN's heart tremble. Jungkook's eyes full of love. She could see so much hope instead of saying anything. They both at once. She hid her face in her hands and sobbed. Jungkook stared at her for a few moments, and then slowly held her in his arms. Jungkook, I want to hear your answer, YN. She was trying to control herself for a few moments, suppressing her sobs on an insistence full of emotions. The rain had almost stopped now. The collisions with the clothes soaked in. The cold wind were turning the body and soul into ice, but the heat of the strong grip on the shoulders and the intensity of the eyes fixed on her face were melting YN's heart like wax. She barely raised his eyelids, which were heavy with tears, to Jungkook. He saw his heart beating in his eyes. Several piles of tears fell from YN's eyes and Jungkook slowly rubbed them in his fists. YN, forgive me. My mistrust has left me nowhere. You saved my life, you gave me protection. But still I could not understand you. YN spoke in a loud voice. Tears of regret were swimming in the eyes. YN, the moment you want to know about. I am familiar about it, but I did not recognize it. After that moment I only thought that you are a man. I am yours at that moment. I'm at your mercy, and you've just taken advantage of your powers.